Hey y'all, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Grief Relief Flower Essence Spray made by the company called Flower Essence Services out of California. These are very high quality essences made with a lot of integrity and strong coherence and resonance with the flower essences. Not all flower essences are made equally. And the grief relief was the first to come to me in the form of sprays through this company, and it has really helped me navigate a lot of grief in the last year. And so I'll start with this one, and then I'll go through and do different videos for the other essences that I have used in the last year and what I have noticed within them, so that maybe this can help you in the future as you go through life transitions that inevitably happen as we go through life. So with grief relief, it looks like this. There's a glare, but you can see it. And I've been ordering these off of iHerb, IHERB.com, I believe, but I think you can also get them off of the Flower Essence Services website as well. Um, Grief Relief was a flower essence that came to us when our cats were dying earlier in the year. We used this essence a lot after they died, not so much during. This was much more like post the dyeing process. The one that we used actively during the dyeing process was Sacred Heart. And then we also used Compassionate Caregiver. And then there's one that I have on one of the cat altars. It's called Peaceful Passage. That one was definitely on the Flower Essence Services website. But with the grief relief, what I noticed and what I found really valuable in it was that I was able to spray it on my heart. So I would envision myself spraying it front, back, side, and the essences would come together and just hold my heart in the way it really needed to be held as I was navigating really deep grief, working a lot in a city that has a lot of EMF frequencies that are not good for the body. And I was under immense stress, and like I felt like I was at my absolute limit. In fact, I know I was pushed past my limits, and it was a very brutal time period in my life. And losing the pets was a facet of that brutal time period. There was a lot of grief coming up for sure. Um, so I would spray this in the mornings, front, back, side of heart, and then I would do two sprays in my mouth in the morning. And then I would kind of guesstimate if I needed to spray it again at night in my mouth or if I just needed to hold my heart. This really is like a heart holding spray, is how it felt for me. And then Jazz, who was our senior kitty cat, who is our senior kitty cat, she was really, really depressed when Tumbles crossed over. And so I would spray Jazz with two sprays of this, kind of hovering high over her because there are, I think, yeah, there's oils in it. There's lemon balm and myrrh, and I know you have to be careful with essential oils and pets. So I would spray it kind of above, further away than I would with myself. Jazz is highly receptive to flower essences. All of my animals are highly receptive to flower essences. They don't have like the skepticism and constructs that humans have. So they know it's good for them and they allow the plant to help them. So Jazz I would spray twice, just about once a day. So two sprays once a day. And then I did do like a spritz in the big water fountain that we had for her. I feel it's diluted enough that it wasn't going to harm her and that the essences would work with her more so on an energetic level and that her body would be able to um, move through any essential oils that it did consume. That's just me working with my intuition as an energy worker. I'm not saying do this because that might not be the case for you. But that really seemed to help her at least move around the house and move from one room to the other because she was really, really sad and was just sleeping in one space. And then my husband also was using the grief relief, holding the heart twice a day. And then I don't know if he sprayed in his mouth two times a day or one time a day. And we each had our own grief relief bottle. We went through two grief relief bottles, one after Tumbles and one after Billy G. And then we had a backup one off and on for a little bit because there's a lot of grief that has been surfacing that is old, as well as lingering grief and just the grief of like being human in a really busy life that does not wait for you to process your grief, unfortunately. And so it has been helpful to just have on standby in the household as well. What I loved about it is when I would cry, it was like my body was on a timer and it knew it could cry as soon as I got home. And so I would just weep and weep and weep and then journal if I wanted to journal or do a letter writing practice if I wanted to do that. And then weep more and then cuddle jazz and go to sleep. And it was like it made it possible for me to pause all the busy thoughts. It made it possible for me to really savor the good memories with Tumbles and Billie G. It made it possible for me to just like weep and release and move through the grief instead of like stuffing it down. And it did it in a really manageable way. It was like the flowers were kind of like little time management bouncers, and they would be like, all right, like we're going to hold her heart throughout her workday. And then we're going to go ahead and open the floodgates, let her weep, and then close those gates so she could sleep deeply and continue processing her grief in her morning and the astral and the dream states. And then we'll do the same thing for work the next day. And then I would cry a little bit in the morning the next day, but it was like the essences really helped me cry and then put my big girl panties on and get on with my day and not over engage with people that I didn't want to, not over explain myself, not be super down in the dumps, but at the same time, like be present with the sadness I was feeling. And the essences also held space for me while I was at work. I thankfully at that time had time periods throughout my shift where I was able to journal and do affirmations. And so I would do gratitude affirmations for the cats, or I would do brags about, I brag, I celebrate that I was able to cry for half an hour yesterday after work and then slept so sound because of it. So I would savor and celebrate the grief that was moving through me, further honoring it and further setting it free so that the love could continue to grow and flow from my heart. It was really, really useful for that. I also really enjoyed using this essence when I was doing yin yoga stretches, which yin yoga is working with your feminine energies and like the yin aspects of the body. We have the yin and the yang aspects if we're looking through the lens of Chinese medicine. Um, and so yin is the yoga that calls you to slow down, whereas like the yang yogas would be like the hatha flows, the more fast-paced flows, which are what society is more familiar with. And I don't really do those as much. I much more enjoy doing yin yoga because my life is already so yang, so busy. And yin really pulls me out of my head into my body and helps move the emotions and can provide me emotional releases during the session, after the session, or within 24 hours. And I really, really value that because I do a lot of energy work and I do intend to keep my channel as open and clean and free flowing as possible. So I have to go into the element of yin quite a bit to keep things in flow. And so I would use this maybe a spray on my heart. If I'd already done my morning, evening ones, usually I do my yin in the evening. I would use the spray on my heart and then go into the yin practice. And I would set the intention as I'm in the yin practice for my body to emote and move through and flush and harmonize where it needed to in regards to the grief that I was moving through for Tumbles, for Billie G, for things that were going on in my partnership. Um, or my car troubles, I would just set the intention, all this was going on at the same time, to move through it. And then I would surrender to the yin movements, which yin yoga, you hold the positions for like a minimum of a minute, but ideally, like a really good yin session, each position is going to be held for about 2 minutes to like 5 minutes. And it really gets into the fascia and the muscle memory and the emotions that get locked in the fascia. There's like studies on this, like you can move emotions out of your fascia that got stuck. So I love yin because I can really move in that way and let the intelligence of my body move emotions out that it would like to metabolize in that moment. And so I would use the grief relief with the yin yoga as well. And then I also used it when I was doing pet loss journal prompts, and that was really helpful as well. So like I could write and then cry. And then I could do the yin yoga and stretch and cry. Or when you're in yin, sometimes your body makes really weird noises. And at first, it can be kind of jarring if you're not prepared to somatically release through sound. I know for me it was. And now I'm so comfortable with my body that I go into yin and my body knows this is the time to grunt. This is the time to cry. This is the time to shake. This is the time to growl. This is the time to hiss. And so I just let my body in that container do that because a lot of our emotions are accompanied by sounds, but we live in a society that tells us to be quiet, right? And it starts at a young age. We're taught to be quiet. We're taught not to have temper tantrums. We're taught not to cry. We're taught not to disturb our parents. And in reparenting ourselves, I find that yin is really helpful for letting the inner child make those sounds safely in a safe container. Like the videos, if you watch them on YouTube, the container would be the time that the video is. And then your body can emote as long as it wants in that container, and then it closes. And as you do it with repetition, the subconscious learns the safety of these containers and it learns what it can move through. The body learns what it can release, when to release it. And with my body, I've learned to usually, if I want to do a longer yin yoga thing, like an hour and a half, I've learned to do it the night before I have an off day. So that way, I'm truly honoring my body and my emotional processes and creating the space for the emotions to come out if they feel safe enough to do so. And so then I'll have a really good cry. I'll go through maybe a rage ritual and cry some more and just feel sad and not get a lot done. And then I feel loads better by the end of the next day once I have that release. And then I'm able to be more productive in ways that are meaningful to me, which even that's like meaningful productivity in some ways. Um, and then my body feels rested because it's not holding and suppressing all these emotions. Because as we hold and suppress emotions, it really tires the body out. It takes a lot of energy to stuff our grief down, to stuff our sadness, our mourning, our sorrow down, right? And a lot of people, they say they have depression. And I don't really feel like depression is like an actual emotion by itself. I feel like depression, through observation over the years, is much more the suppression of a buttload of emotions that have not been felt. And now it's so suppressed that we identify with what it is to be suppressed through labeling it as depression. And I feel like when we create these containers with yin yoga or journal practices, I'm really big on the somatic practices, and then combined with like the grief relief flower essence, we can really move through so much stuff. And then life begins to sparkle again. We begin to sparkle again. Relationships around us start to change. I noticed as I was working with the grief relief that because I was honoring myself and holding space for myself, that the people around me were able to do that. Not everybody, but the ones that mattered were able to. And that was really helpful. And yeah, they weren't able to like all the time as much as I needed, but I feel like this combined with the compassionate caregiver essence were so helpful in holding space for me to have my own back and hold space for myself as I went through these feelings because no one else was going to hold space for me to do it. I had to do it myself. And I did. And now here I am sharing my flower essence experience with you, hoping that this tool can help you as well. Let's see what else. Grief relief. I feel called to mention that when you work with essences, they work in the water of your body. They're made of a partial mix of like water and liquid, as well as some people use, let's see, what do they use on here? Mm, yeah, she used alcohol in hers. Some people use alcohol, and like I think some will use brandy and some will use vodka. And then you can also use apple cider vinegar. And others use glycerin. All of it is fine, but it holds the essence in a liquid form, and then you ingest it, which were made up of so much water. And then this is how the flowers are able to move through those really stubborn emotional blocks because they're working from the inside out. It's not up here that they're working. They're literally working in the waters of your body, which water in metaphysics has to do with our emotional body as well, our flow. which if we become congested with emotion, the water gets really murky. It's helpful to have the flower essences go in there and be like little like troopers that go through pushing up the mud bubbles that are ready to process. And then they push up and come out as water again, as tears, right? In this case, with grief relief. And then as that happens, then your water becomes more clean, more coherent. As that happens, then you're also able to stay aligned with that which you are manifesting. I feel like in the spiritual community, a lot of people talk about like think about what you want and how good it feels to have it, and then they don't talk about how important it is to truly feel all of your full range of feelings. And then that's also bypassing, that's also suppression. And then this is why there's like that dissatisfaction sometimes when you do receive what you're calling in, because you have all this other stuff that's getting in the way of you truly receiving from a place of joy, right? So when you're working with flower essences, they will hold space and witness you through the streams of consciousness that they are in the non-physical realms, as well as the physical of them being inside of you. And then those emotions move free of judgment, and then they are transmuted through that intention of consciously moving through things. And they're transmuted, especially if you work with intention, through your higher self, through your guardian angels, through your higher power, God, Goddess, Gaia, whatever you believe in. It will be transmuted with love, for that is what our higher power is. And it's through that transmutation that we're really able to receive things joyfully and from the heart, and with that receptivity of heart awareness, womb awareness, right? And so it's really important to process your grief and, yeah, give yourself that grief relief, move through things, and trust that as you do it, that makes you so much more magnetic to that which you're calling in. It doesn't push it away. It brings it in. It's magnetizing to feel your feelings. Now, if you're stuck in a thought cycle or a thought loop, that's different. As far as when you're going through stuff, you really just got to embrace going through it and trusting that you'll pull out of it, and trusting that, like, God, Goddess, Gaia is your lifeguard. They're carrying you to shore. They're making sure you're going to get through it safety, and you're going to have this beautiful view afterwards or looking back, right? And so, yeah, that's another component of it. And then if you do have any sound healing instruments, like a tuning fork, or there's like a sound bowl, I can't point, weird, there we go, sound bowl, or even like the smaller little, I think they're copper or bronze bowls, or a hand pan, you can also take the essences with the intention to combine them with the sound, because sound has its own coherence. These are really natural frequencies that are all over the place in nature, all over the place in our planet. They're in all these invisible sound waves of coherence. And our body can self-tune and auto-tune itself back into coherence when there's distortion in it through hearing the sound of the tuning fork, the sound of a sound bowl. So you can take the essence and then maybe just sit for a timer of 5 minutes and play a sound bowl with the intention to really just let your body tune itself, trusting the intelligence of your body to move what it needs to move. Recently, I saw the word movement, MEANT, and it's a dance movement. I want to say it's a menti dance movement. And I love how he calls it movement, but so then it's like creating this movement of sound with essences, a synergy to move these emotions and all that they mean out and bring in that coherence so you can sit in your pure um, beauty in the light that is you. So you can really just be you and light up naturally and not have all these things clogging you, dimming your light, snuffing you out, and all of that jazz. And the bottle even says, it says it provides solace and insight in times of sorrow and searching. And I was using this bottle when I was doing peppermint clearing toxicity spells, which I can put a link in the bottom of the video of this. And those were really useful for helping me process the grief of pets crossing. And I started one a week before the week they crossed, and then it carried over to the week after. It was actually divine timing when I started the first one because I had no idea the pet was going to cross around that time. And so combined with the spell and then the essence, I had so many insights as to what each of my pets was here to teach me about, what I learned from them, what they were mirroring for me. and how to take that and go forth honoring the legacy of love that was Billie G and Tumbles. And yeah, the grief relief combined with the peppermint spell was very, very helpful. All right. So that's what I got on the grief relief spray. I will go ahead and wrap up this video and then record the next one for the other essences that I used during that time frame, now that I feel like I have a good understanding of how they worked in my life so I can present something tangible for you to apply in your life. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.